it going, everyone? How you all doing today? Hopefully everyone's doing good. All right, today might be a little bit shorter stream. There's some important stuff happening right now. So I will probably be doing a shorter stream today, not too long. I was planning on showing you guys, showcasing a deck that I am excited for, but there's probably no reason to because the bans aren't officially out yet. Despite all that news, hopefully everyone's doing okay. Let's see. Someone in the chat said we got dual monitors, all good. I got dual monitors too. Yeah, we're keeping a close eye on everything. But hopefully it all goes well today. We're gonna do a short stream, like I said, for today, so everyone can focus on other things. But today we're gonna be talking about the winnings of Osaka, and then also what potential bans could be on the new upcoming BNR. I think the next one is November 11th, so that is going to be next Monday. So my predictions, at least for the BNR, we'll go over all the things that I think could be on there, and then my eventual predictions for what could be. So we're just going to kind of get right into it. We're going to start off with the Osaka meta, and we'll just work our way from there. If anyone has any questions or anything, let me know in the chat. But once again, will be a shorter stream today. Sweet. So we're going to get right into it here. This is all the registered classic constructed decks from Worlds in Osaka. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of Enigma and Aurora. And then you got Dash.io, New, Viserai, and Zen kind of following up in the rear. And you got your other heroes that are like, you know, still a part of the metagame, but not as popular, with Florian, Azalea, Victor, KO, stuff like that. And then you got, like, you know, your dark horses of the of the tournament. I predicted Dash.ie would win. Unfortunately, none of the dashes could get there. But not even just Dash.ie, Dash.io couldn't even get there either. But all the rest of the heroes could not stand a chance against Count Your Blessings Enigma. She was the one that won the whole tournament. I'm going to go ahead and go to next to this slide. This one is the day 2 conversion rates. As you can see, Enigma and Aurora are still as strong as ever. They're going to be obviously are very big heavy hitters of this format. And then without any changes, obviously this won't change. Dash.io bring up the rear. There is a lot of stirrings for high octane bans. So we'll definitely talk about that when we get to it. But I assume with that high octane, Dash will have to with high octane being gone, Dash will definitely have to adapt very, very well. High octane is kind of an essential part of what makes Dash.ie and Dash.io super strong. Being able to unload all those gun counters in Dash.io, and then Dash.ie kind of extending your combat damage past the point of just maximum velocity. And then in the pistol package plan, sometimes you need to end the game with like a bunch of boosts and something, or a bunch of boosts. So like when you're running like the switchboard dash, you want to be able to end the game with, like, you know, pistol for 4, pistol for 5, like 5 times. Can't do that anymore, so switchboard might be a little bit worse because of the high octane ban. But you know, this is the day 2 conversion, not too bad at all. I don't think there were any big surprises in terms of this. Like 2 Acelios made it. I think both Acelios made top 32. Shout out to teammate Alex Vore, who ended up top 32ing with Acelio, I believe. So really good. Hopefully the Wizards can kind of come back in some sort of capacity. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about good old... Oh, more stats. Okay, never mind. I forgot to prepare this slide. So this is the overall win percentage of each hero from Worlds. So you can see obviously Enigma and Aurora having the most sort of games. And just, you know, still going over 50% win rate. So obviously very strong heroes. But you got some other heroes in here that have lost more than they won. But for the most part, most heroes won. You know, all of this will add up to 50-50 obviously. But most heroes that were like that were decent picks for the meta will end up being positive. Those heroes, unfortunately, like Riptide, will be very much so at a losing rate compared to these sort of higher end heroes. So we got Aurora at 51%. She had 2 copies in the top 8, I believe. Or was it 1 copy? Well, we'll get back. Let's see. It's all 2 copies. Yes, it was Rob and Mercy that ended up doing that, and then we also had 2 Dash IOs as well. The craziest thing to me on this whole chart is Dash IO's win rate, and obviously Bravo Showstopper. I think Kale was the only Bravo Showstopper, if I'm not wrong. So that was really cool to see Kale. I think he played Count Your Blessings Bravo. So that was super cool to see. He went 10-4 on that. Super awesome when you're like the only person representing one hero and you end up going 10-4. That's pretty hilarious in CC. Actually, that wouldn't make sense, right? 10-4. That would be 2 Bravos because this is CC matches only. So since there were 9 rounds of CC, I believe, since it's 5 day 1 and 4 day 2, that had to be 2 Bravos. So Kale was not alone, but both Bravos ended up having one of the highest win percentages regardless of games, besides Bolton, who went 4-1 in CC. So I think that Bolton might have went 4-1 CC day 1 and then just like got destroyed in their draft or something and decided I'm not going to play day 2, or I couldn't play day 2. So that was pretty unfortunate. My local favorite, Riptide, is unfortunately 0-4 in the CC portion. Didn't even play out the last CC round, so looking pretty rough over there too. Unfortunately, I was not in Osaka to try to help get those numbers a little bit better, but alas. Some other surprising numbers is KO and Levia, both being around 30 to 35% win rate. That is like extremely low when before when Rosetta got announced and Zen got announced that he was going to be receiving some bans. It's actually pretty interesting because everyone thought KO, who was kind of suppressed by Zen, Levia make me sad. Yeah. Zen was a little bit suppressed. KO was a bit suppressed by Zen because Zen was just faster, had better equipment. The go get my chi button was really good, and KO just didn't have the disruption necessary to kind of stop Zen in its tracks. And once Zen got kind of hit by the tome bans, the book bannings, so like Art of War with it, everyone thought that KO would kind of be the next biggest deck. Because KO was, for the longest time, the most consistent aggro deck, had the best numbers. And now it seems like that's still not the case because the Enigma representation is really good. Enigma, notorious for having a decent matchup in the KO, just because if you're playing that value game, Enigma will beat you on that axis. And then you got stuff like Aurora, which is really hard for KO to block sometimes because he's really good at blocking these bigger attacks with his armor and like some blocks from hand. But Aurora is really good at being tricky in the combat phase or in the reaction phase with like lightning press and stuff, and she deals a lot of arcane damage at times, which is really hard for KO to kind of block and sacrifice one of his premium equipment. Like you want to run Scowling in this matchup, probably you want to run Apex to get those might tokens. You don't have 2 arms to run No Rune or like Arcane Lantern with your Mandible Claw. So you're either doing No Rune Robe or No Rune Feet, and that's tricky too because you want Savage Sash and some variation of Beaten Trackers or Scab Skins to be able to kind of negate that. So it's a little weird for KO, I would say, and then Levia too. I personally thought Levia was going to be super strong going into Worlds just because of Shadow Realm Horror and how like above rate that card is. Like that card is absolutely insane. And I thought she was going to be a really, really big proponent of this metagame. But it looks like the top heroes are just a little bit too oppressive towards her. Like Aurora just a little bit too tricky to play against. Probably Somersault adding to that. Some Electromagnetic Somersault. Being able to block out Levia's attack and then get them back on defense. And like the split damage, like I said, again, is really hard to prevent. Like especially when you're trying to transform and stuff, you have to account for arcane damage. And that's really tough because you have to pitch cards from hand. Instead of just blocking with your Carrion Husk, and things can definitely make you very sad, like Drofer is over there in the chat. But yeah, that's super surprising to me. I thought the Brutes would at least do a little bit better, but seeing that their 30 to 35% win rate is pretty insane. Keep in mind, like some of the best players are probably not choosing these decks because they're not as popular, and they want to play something that's a little bit more known and proven. So they're probably playing stuff like Dash, Aurora, and Enigma. So the representation for the brutes is probably not as high as it was in the past. Therefore, probably being a little bit less successful in that regard. But yeah, other than that, you got your decks that did really well. Another deck that kind of showed up in droves was Florian, and Florian ended up being 55 and 75. That's a pretty low win rate for a deck that played a lot of games over the weekend. Zen, Tamer of Purpose as well. Two decks that were kind of on the precipice of being popular. Like, a lot of people brought it, but unfortunately just could not keep up with what was going on with Enigma, Aurora, and Dash.io. I feel like Dash.io kind of, pre-high octane ban or pre-bans of any kind. It's a little tough to kind of play a deck that wants to be proactive against her, because it feels like she kind of has those games where she just puts you on the blocking like the entire game, and if you can't weather that storm, it's going to be really hard for you to kind of control that. So it's pretty weird. It was some of the games that we saw on stream for Dash.io, it was pretty insane. Like, you saw these like 60 damage turns and stuff, but just on the norm, like on a normal Dash.io turn, she kind of forced you to block pretty heavily, because if you miss block like a boom grenade, or you have to always worry about boom grenade, but if there's a boom grenade on board, you really are incentivized to block out. And if you can't block out, you take a bunch of damage. So, like, and you're losing that race probably always. So, she's kind of meta warping more so than Aurora and Enigma, in my opinion, because she kind of forces you into a specific playstyle. Whereas Aurora and Enigma, I feel like, are just really good value decks. So, and any deck can kind of keep up with the value deck if you have good turns, if you have a good game plan. But Dash.io is just kind of not necessarily a value deck, but it's almost overwhelmingly good in some games where you're kind of popping off to items off the top and whatnot. So I am not surprised that Dash.io having such a higher win rate alongside her play rate. But I'm also surprised, I'm also not surprised that Florian and Zen kind of just missing the gun against like the more hostile meta up top. They obviously have very good matchups, but Florian probably not the greatest into Enigma every game, and then Zen, although probably good into Enigma, kind of faces a lot of challenges with Aurora and Dash.io. There are ways you can get around it, like wax on, wax off, but that's kind of like a different case, because wax on, wax off is really good when it works, but oftentimes you can draw like defense reactions in different orders. Like, you can draw wax on but not wax off, and vice versa. And sometimes you just can't transcend, like you just do not have the space to transcend, and your helmet's useless, your Kasai is useless. These dashes might be running T-Bone as well, and I know the new one, the Battle Worn boots, are really good at protecting against T-Bone, but if that's gone, or if they play two T-Bones, like, you have to give up Shuko, you have to give up Traverse, Kasaya. I assume you don't want to give up Shuko early because it's so much damage, and you don't really want to give up Traverse, obviously, because you don't have Transcend cards. So, like, it's really tough to play against T-Bones if Dash.io includes them. Yeah, I think those two decks, I was really high on our team's Florian deck. I thought that was really a really good pick by Christopher Ayali. I think he bought Florian, and I witnessed him like absolutely murder us at the ProQuest the day before. But the week before he left, or the week before Worlds, he absolutely steamrolled everybody on Florian. So it was really cool to see, even Enigmas. But he ended up doing pretty well. And then Zen, I've played against a lot of Zen locally, and the wax on wax off combo is pretty insane. Like, it's if you find it early, making that Zen state like turn 1, turn 2 against like a Dash.io is just insane. I wish Dissolution Sphere for mechs worked like that. Dissolution Sphere says prevent 1 damage only if the source is doing exactly 1 damage. I wish Dissolution Sphere was like Zen state, where it would prevent 1 no matter what. Then I think the item would be a lot more worth it to play. But it might be just a little bit too broken if you can get Dissolution Sphere out just like that. Whereas Zen state, you kind of have to work for it. You kind of have to line everything up. There's very specific conditions, like Find Center has to make you 1. Kasaya, you have to have a chi. And then wax on, wax off, they have to see each other on the chain. But yeah, all right, let's get into the world's top 8 bracket. And all right, should be right here. Sweet. So for the top 8 bracket, first place we had Rob Cannon on Aurora. Second place we had Mercy, also on Aurora, Mercy Bickell. And then third place, we had Michael Hamilton on his classic, you know, showing once in a while. Every once in a while, I think Michael Hamilton reminds us that he's probably the best player in the world. And he's playing Count Your Blessings new into Sam, who we thought was going to be a really good matchup, but Sam ended up taking it. And then we got fourth and fifth, we got Alan Lau versus Noah Bagelman. Sixth place, we have Sam playing Dash.io. And then in seventh, we have Valentine Mackel, who was playing Enigma. I apologize if I butcher any of these names. And then in eighth place, our eventual champion playing Count Your Blessings Enigma is Grzegorz Kowalski. So I watched most of these games. I haven't gotten the chance to watch all of them, unfortunately. But I did definitely watch that long, grueling final that took a while, but ended up having a champion at the end, going all the way down to, literally one card, 2 cards left in deck. Was pretty insane. That game just took forever, but it was just a masterclass from Grzegorz and his ability to just block everything. Yeah, I think just going through it, he was able to kind of block super well, and he played 3 aggro decks in a row. I think it would have been interesting to see how he would have done against the Mir or Michael Hamilton's new, who was also on Count Your Blessings, but he ended up facing 3 different aggro decks. 2 of the same aggro deck and 1 Dash-O from Alan Lau. And he ended up fatiguing them all. Count Your Blessings, he found, there were some games where he actually found the red ones first, and it mattered a lot, actually. I think against Alan Lau, he was able to play, I think, all 3 reds and 2 yellows instead of, any of the blues. And that definitely helps when you're trying to leverage your health. I think he was at like 3 or 4 health, and if those reds were blues, he's obviously like way lower and possibly dying. So super clutch strategy to just kind of block out and hope that your opponent can't get there. But we also saw some strategy in the top 8 as Sam try to combat like this sort of play style from Count Your Blessings deck. Like I think we saw him against Michael Hamilton kind of go off with his combo. And then definitely against Matt Rogers, when Matt Rogers was trying to fatigue him on Count Your Blessings Enigma, Sam put together like the most disgusting Dash-O turn I think we've all ever seen. So that was pretty cool. Congratulations once more to Grzegorz for winning the whole dang thing on Count Your Blessings Enigma. And I think if he had not won, I don't think we talk about that card in specific in terms of bans. But I think because they won, it kind of brings to light the issue with the card that a lot of people have. And I'll also give my personal thoughts on it when we get to kind of the ban portion of the segment. But kind of going into the decks just to give a little bit more insight. So this is Grzegorz' deck. Pretty standard, I feel like, for Enigma loadout. Like you got, ability... equipment that has AB on it to be able to protect against, like wizards and whatnot, like Acilio and Kano. You got 9 Count Your Blessings, and it's just a really solid deck to kind of be able to fatigue decks consistently. Like I think you only have 1 attack in here. Like Command and Conquer is like I think the only attack besides Cosmic Awakening. I guess you have second 10 energy wind. But I think this is like literally the only card that is worth swinging, in Grzegorz' opinion, worth swinging. And we saw how good CNC was in that match against Mercy, where it targeted the Poison the Well. So this is like full value, full fatigue, Count Your Blessings Enigma, not trying to attack on any axis. But it is pretty interesting how it tries not to sacrifice too much to the mirror. You still got stuff like, Waxing Spectre, Spectral Manifestations, Restless Coalescence. There's a little bit of a sideboard, Astral Etchings, obviously, to kind of not lose too much into the Enigma mirror with Rage Spectre, just your classic Mystic cards. But yeah, I think it's kind of like a fine line. Like, I don't think anyone's going to bring Classic Enigma or like do well with Classic Enigma because of how fast the aggro decks are. Attacking the aggro decks on this axis is a little bit more successful because if they stumble at all, you get to kind of outvalue them with Count Your Blessings. And they won't be able to kind of kill you before you get maximum value out of it. But if you're playing regular Enigma and you don't find your cards, like there's no sort of axis you're attacking them on because you're making all these ward prevention effects, and then eventually they just go away because of how much damage Dash is doing, how much damage Aurora is doing, and it's really hard to keep up with them in terms of value because they're so aggressive. But when you're attacking them on account your blessings access, you're able to kind of out heal them if they don't do enough damage, and then I think the downside of count your blessings is that it costs 2 and it doesn't block, but Enigma does very well at kind of preventing or using the resources left over, because if you pitch a blue to do it, you have 1 floating. This could be used for Oasis. You have your Tunic, so you could with Tunic and a blue, you could double count your blessings. You can use the 1 for Phantasmal Footsteps, which blocks 1. There's a lot of resource pitch outlets for Enigma in this deck. So it's like really good to not waste the extra resource, and you have a lot of blues in this deck, obviously, because it's Enigma. So anytime they play like a Count Your Blessings, it's probably going to go off the turn. You're not going to draw a lot of reds. Even if you do, you have stuff like Sync and Fate to kind of guarantee it. But yeah, just like a super consistent deck that excels at blocking, and it's a very unique way to kind of win. Win the world championship, right? Like you're kind of at the mercy of your opponent, sort of, but you're also like actively blocking very well and preventing all these effects, and like you're putting the onus on your opponent to be able to do something about it, which is a very unique playstyle. I don't think necessarily it's a bad thing. Like I personally love playing against Count Your Blessings decks, just because you kind of have to solve that puzzle. And you only have like a limited amount of time to do it, especially if you're playing an aggro deck. But I can see how Count Your Blessings sometimes sort of nullifies what other heroes are trying to do, especially some slower heroes. But that's always kind of existed in the game. Like every sort of class has really bad matchups, and most of them are illusionist related. But I think that the aggro decks definitely, I see this sort of like triangle of like, the good anti-disruption decks that are really good into aggro kind of suffer against Enigma, especially Count Your Blessings Enigma, like all the Guardians. And then Enigma can kind of struggle against the aggro decks at times. But this deck specifically that Grzegorz built seems really good at just being able to use all the resources on hand and block very well, and have like a late game anti-fatigue with Cosmic Awakening and 3 Cosmic Awakenings, and the Spectral Shield game plan at the end. So like, there's always a way to win, even if you fully mill out your opponent. Like if they can't, you have 3 Cosmic Awakenings with a bunch of chi, so that's like 20, which is like gonna win you sometimes even the mirror if they heal for that much. So that's pretty cool. I really like this deck. It seems like a ton of fun to play, but it just seems so like stressful, like every time you're sitting down, you're like, okay, I have to block perfectly. If I don't block perfectly, like I probably lose the game, which sucks because it's like reactive game plans rather than proactive game plans, which can kind of feel bad sometimes too, because I think for the most part, Flesh and Blood rewards the person in the driver's seat, and kind of putting the onus on whoever to like have a reaction. And playing like a very reactionary deck is pretty funny, or pretty hard to maneuver, especially in a tournament with 15 rounds and top 8. So really, big congrats to Grzegorz for winning the whole thing on this sort of deck. And then we got some other decks that I want to kind of go into too. This is Mercy's deck from second place. She had 2 Poison the Wells, and we kind of saw how they went. Grzegorz baited out the first Poison the Well pretty well. He played a red Count Your Blessings, which was going to heal for if Mercy didn't play the poison, it would have been for 4, I believe. And then Mercy ended up playing out the Poison the Well to kind of get 4, and she knew she had 1 left in the deck, so she knew that she could probably get away with it and then play the other one later for more value. But Grzegorz obviously thought and played around this. He responded with blue Count Your Blessings, which healed him, I think, for just 2, maybe 3. And Grzegorz, played that in response so that the Poison Well ate up the blue one, and then now the Grzegorz' red one sees the blue one that he just played that got negated, and then also heals him back up with the full plus 2 more health from the red one. So really clutch play there. And then, as we all know, the CNC heard around the world. Mercy had her Poison the Well in Arsenal, and Grzegorz, who had been blocking the entire game, throws a CNC, and the hand is like a 2 block and 3 instances, and just could not block the poison well. And it was such a crazy moment to think that, you know, the CNC, this deck that never attacks, this deck that just blocks all day and doesn't do anything else, just ends up winning the game because of a CNC. I don't know if it's like game winning, but it felt really game winning in the moment, because Gregor still had like 2 County Blessings left, 3 County Blessings left, and that thing was just right there waiting for the next one to be played. And as soon as it was gone, Gregor's played out the other County Blessing. So it was basically just such a big swing once that last poison in the well was gone. And they're playing with open deck list too, because I think they got to review the deck list for top 8. So Gregor's knew that it was the last one. So pretty tough luck there. But for the Enigma deck, for the Aurora deck, pretty standard. A lot of Snapdragon Scalers we're seeing on Aurora. And it's just your standard stuff. Playing a lot of generics like Exude, Ravens to kind of add to the consistency. And these generics are super powerful, right? Like Snatch, Rabble, and Exude. Like, they're just super powerful. Playing all the good lightning attacks. I don't think we saw anything too crazy. A lot of the Auroras were playing Warmongers. I saw also Noah was playing Warmongers in Viscerai. Like, everyone thinks that Warmongers counters Viscerai, counters Runeblade in general, you know, but Noah actually had a really good game plan in his list where he can kind of go in between the sort of modes really well. Like, he could choose Peace or War pretty well. I still don't think... it's just a great blue block 3, right? But it's hard... I feel like it's hard to kind of use this as a turn ender. At least, like, it's probably still good utility, and if you really need to catch up, you could just play it as a 1 card, you know, whatever, and you can kind of read the context on your board. But, like, playing it as a turn ender when you have no rune chance feels a little bit crazy, because you would always probably have to say War, right? Because if you have no hand context for your next hand, like you know, if you don't know if you're gonna draw all non-attacks or all attacks, you probably always choose War. I can see it a little bit better in Aurora, because Aurora feels like she's pretty good at navigating around that because of all the instances and whatnot. So I think it feels a little bit better in Aurora, but seeing that in Noah's deck was pretty insane. But, you know, shout out to Noah too, going so ham and doing so well for himself with Viscerai. Watching him play Viscerai all weekend was definitely a sight to see. I think the Runaways were mostly playing Zen, so it was cool to see one of the non-Zen decks make it. I think Lucas said that whoever wins Worlds would be a person playing his deck, whoever the best Runaways teammate was. So unfortunately, Noah was not playing Zen. He probably would have won Worlds if he was playing Zen. But Viscerai was a good second sort of choice for his deck. And then moving on, we have the 2 dash decks. So I kind of want to talk about the differences in the dash decks. So let's go over Alan Lau's first, who got 3rd, 4th. So this one's pretty standard. It's just your standard boost list with high octane still, unbanned. You still have Bias Update, and there's nothing really too crazy. Like there's not really any crazy items like Signal Jammer, TikTok Clock. Not a lot of tech cards. It's mostly just super consistent, hyper consistent, and everything kind of goes toward that game plan of I'm gonna boost, I'm gonna find my boom grenades, and I'm gonna just straight out damage whoever's trying to fatigue me. So there was nothing really spicy about Alan. He's just kind of showcasing like player skill and just, you know, saying, hey, if you can block out my turns, go for it, but I'm just going to have an overwhelmingly good amount of boost cards, above rate boost cards. They're all going to come in for 4, 5, and I'm always going to threaten my boom grenades. So nothing too spicy from Alan's list. And then we kind of see the sort of theory crafting and deck building from Sam's side. So Sam kind of went super ham on the system reset plan. So he had TikTok Clock for the mirror, a little bit more tech for the mirror. But he also ran Optical Monocle and System Reset. So, as everyone knows, he kind of went on this crazy sort of turn with System Reset and Optical Monocle, where he got the 2 Optical Monocles out, and he was just basically able to forever opt and kind of change the course of his deck. Optical, for people that don't know, is an Arcane Rising common. So, you know, from the 2nd set ever. It enters the arena with 5 steam counters, and when Optical Monocle has no counters on it, it you have to destroy it. So you can opt one and remove one. So you basically get 5 free ops with this item, and obviously this is very easy to play because you could just play it off the top, and it costs 0, and it's a blue card too for pitch. Once he set that up, he was able to get all 3 cerebellums out and just off to the race. The system reset multiple times. I think he triple high octane that turn. He ended up killing Matt Rogers from like 50 something damage for 49 health, I believe, which is like absolutely insane. And this deck was like, I think Sam said it himself, like the theory crafting behind it that he got from somebody else was very like possible, but it's obviously very like everything has to align. So he kind of made the deck a little bit more streamlined for it with optical monocle, system reset, obviously for the combo, and he said that he added a couple more 0 cost boost cards to make the combo a little bit more better, a little bit easier to pull off without having to commit resources to it. And heavy industry power plant being a big part of that, right? Like when you're going off on the triple high octane turn, you kind of want every time you boost it be an extra resource so that you can end these turns with the giant max Vs at the end. Basically drawing through your entire deck with system reset and cerebellum processor. You want to be able to get more resources, cheat more resources on one really big turn. Like Teklo Foundry Heart will always be kind of your like throughout the game gets you a lot of value. Obviously sacrificing 2 cards every time, but I feel like heavy industry power plant kind of pushes you across the threshold of one really, really big turn, and sometimes that one big turn kind of determines the entire game, because we saw it against Matt where he was just going off. We also saw it against Michael Hamilton where Sam was able to build a big enough threat and just push enough damage, and eventually Michael couldn't get there. I think he only played like 3 Count Your Blessings. So we kind of saw both sides of the coin where a Dash-O can just be too fast for you to kind of block out anyway, and then Dash-O, even though you're blocking out super well, going all the way to 49 health, sometimes they just have the God turn where everything lines up for them. The optical monocles see the cerebellum processors. Spark is in the right place. Like if everything lines up, this deck does insane things, and I think that's why they're pushing so hard for like a high octane ban. I think Brian even said on broadcast that it's like gone, like already confirmed that it's gone, and he hopes that mech players enjoy it while it lasts. So it's super sad to see on my end too. Like I've played mech basically all this year with Dash Adventure Extraordinaire, so it's kind of sad to see high octane be gone since it's been so crucial to like all the decks I've built with mech this year. But it does there is like an upside to it if it does go away. Like there's a lot more deck building to be done now. Deck building isn't as easy as just slamming high octane and play like the most busted like mechanic that works with it, whether that be like the combo game plan from Dash.io or the mech suit from Max the Hype Nitro, stuff like that. Like it's pretty cool to see. I think it's sad to see it go, but I think it's a necessary sort of design decision from LSS as they kind of break down more and more of these like oppressive cards, so to speak. And it's definitely, I still don't know how to feel about it. Like I love mech and I don't want to see high octane go, but I understand the decision. Like I understand how it can be oppressive at times. Like when you see high octane on the board, it kind of feels like Blood Rush Bellows at times. Like, oh my gosh, they just found the power card. They're about to hit me for like 25, 30 damage. And it feels like if they're slowing down the meta this hard, there's probably have to be other bannings as well to kind of mitigate the sort of loss that you have from these sort of big turns. Because I think they also said this on broadcast that they want people to be able to do powerful things. Like LL, Living Legend, encapsulates that really well because you get to play like full power Flesh and Blood, but Classic Constructed, it feels like they're stripping away a lot of the power cards, the ability for players to kind of do these really explosive turns, and they really want to emphasize this sort of like back and forth sort of game. That's the game they always want to see on coverage. Like that's the game that everyone wants to see, like the two heroes kind of duking it out, playing, and then just like at the end 1-1. Like that's the ideal one. They don't want these like sort of 50-0, 30-0 with like 60 damage turns from an aggro deck sort of ordeal with like Zen and now Dash.io. So it seems like they're cracking down on all that, on all those cards. Sweet. And then we're going to get right into the ban. So I made a notepad of all the cards I think could be on the chopping block, and we'll talk about each one, and then we'll see if any of them kind of go anywhere. Like I said, today's going to be a little bit of a shorter stream, but hopefully we'll get some insight on what the bans could be. I think it's going to be on the 11th, so that's like less than a week away. So it should be a lot of fun to see what that ban article says. I think they did like the emergency banning with the tome, so this is the actual one they had scheduled. So they're definitely going to go through with it. I don't think there's any big events this upcoming week, so it's not integral that they get this sort of out. But the next big event, at least I'm going to, is Calling Portland. So that'll be at the end of this month. So it'll be super cool to see what we're working with for Portland. Whether or not they just ban High Octane, or if there's some really big other heavy hitters that they're really looking at. But going to the notepad. Sweet. So these are all the cards I think are potentially on the chopping block. There might be some, that obviously aren't here. Like, this is not obviously the final say, but these are all the cards I think are on the chopping block, just because they kind of go against what I see the game as when High Octane gets banned. So obviously High Octane is the first sort of card being brought up. Fate and Sync Brave, yeah, we're gonna talk about that when we get there. But High Octane obviously on the chopping block. I'm like almost sure this card's gone. Like, it was teased beforehand in that when they released the Dash deck. I forgot which interview it was. Was it like the Dev Inside Scoop, where he said that they were looking at High Octane very closely? And then after a couple coverage games from Brian himself, he basically just said that High Octane's gone on broadcast during Worlds. So we could all basically say that High Octane's gone. So we're probably gonna lose our good old Action Point Abuser card. But aside from that, there's another card in Brute that kind of does the same thing, but not really. It's called Blood Rush Bellow. So Blood Rush Bellow has kind of been a Brute staple in every Brute deck. Same with High Octane. High Octane has always been good, in Dash.io, Dash.ie, Max Type Nitro. Not great, obviously, in Teklo, but that's kind of like a sort of differently built hero altogether. Doesn't even feel like a mech sometimes, but obviously making the giant mech suit at the end feels like a mech. But Blood Rush Bella has been in every Brute deck. Like, it is the Brute card. Belittle should be back. Art of War is gone, in my opinion. Yeah. I'll get to that portion when we get there too, but I think that's one of the reasons why too. But in terms of Blood Rush Bellow, like, Blood Rush Bellow with Mandible Claws has been insane since the dawn of time. Like, since the Mandible Claw came out with KO Berserker Runt, like, being able to play Blood Rush Bellow and then swing 5/5 into attack has always been a Brute thing. And I think the reason why this card isn't banned yet, even though it draws 2 cards like every other tome, is the fact that there is a cost to it. Like, you have to discard a card, and then the cards you're drawing are random, and sometimes it doesn't really push that envelope of, like, broken, because it's just there's not really any on hits with it, and it's not sort of feeding this sort of combo, because it's usually just played like as is on that turn, and you kind of get like a higher value turn overall, whereas High Octane was once that, I feel like, but now it's kind of turned into the sort of like super combo where you can exceed the amount of like damage block and health that an opposing hero has. So I could see why Blood Rush Bellow wasn't banned, where High Octane is on the chopping block. Like, if there was some sort of like crazy combo with Blood Rush Bellow where you can do like 60 damage, they would probably look at this card a little bit closer. But it's sort of just like a brute power card where if you see it, it does a lot of damage. And oftentimes I think it also negates itself, because sometimes you draw 2 in a hand, or sometimes you draw discard with it. So it is like a very big deck. It can be a very big deck list restriction, where if you're playing KO, for example, with all these draw discard effects, like if you hit a Blood Rush Bellow off the top, or if you reveal off the top on a clash and it's Blood Rush Bellow, even though it's a strong card in your deck, it definitely works against you oftentimes because of its non-attack nature or type. So yeah, I think it's still just a really strong card. I don't think Blood Rush Bellow will get banned just because the Brutes are doing so poorly right now, and to kind of kick them while they're down is pretty rough. But I don't think, basically don't think it will be banned just because I think they need some help right now. With other aggro decks kind of going down in the meta. I think Dash-O being super good against the Brutes is probably why they're doing so bad. So banning High Octane and keeping the Brutes where they're at kind of helps them kind of raise back into the meta and probably have a better matchup spread overall. Moving on, we got Tome of Imperial Flame. So this is very interesting because the new heroes are Draconic. And Tome of the Imperial Flame was left out of the ban restrictions as well the last time, even though they banned out the tomes. And they were also monitoring this one closely. Everyone knows that this one was a really big buff to Dromai. Dromai famously became Tomai in this instance and just started spewing out dragons without actually having to kind of work with their Ash mechanic. I feel like this card, basically, if you saw it, you were able to play it and then generate Ash so fast because of the pitch 2 reds. And it kind of negated any sort of like build up with Dromai where you had to like manage your Ash at all. It was sort of just play on demand, get a bunch of Ash, and you don't have to worry about Ash for the rest of the game because you just pitch 2 reds. You can Furnace as well to go to 3 resources. So it made playing an all red deck be able to play all those big dragons too, like Tomai. I would say because of Dromai's problem, it makes me sort of scared of what the new heroes could do. The new heroes it is a ninja and a warrior. So historically in the past, ninja, obviously one of those decks that they've hit recently with Art of War. They might have, it might be pretty good in ninja too, but you are playing non-attacks. Like traditionally ninjas don't play a lot of non-attacks. They play a lot of sort of attack actions that kind of combo off each other. So playing on non-attack in the deck would be kind of weird. But I can definitely see it not being as good in Ninja because you have to pitch. The reason why it was so good in Dromai was because you can... the resource outlet for pitching was very good because you can play dragons out. You can play these, 1 cost, 2 cost dragons, Tomotai as well. Whereas Ninja, you kind of want to keep all the cards in your hand and play them out rather than pitch them because they don't really have a good resource sink. Like, sure, Fi in the past with Searing Emberblade was, a decent one. But you'd rather keep the 2 0-for-4s in hand and then be able to kind of just swing 4-4 instead of just pitching 2 cards to play Searing Emberblade. And there's not really a gain off Ash as well. There's no, like, Ash mechanic. It's just straight up pitching. So sometimes, I think Tome of Imperial Flame, not in Draconic decks, not named Dromai, might be a little bit more balanced. Because of the fact you have to draw 2 cards or you discard your entire hand. Might be a bit too early to determine Imperial Flame, Crimsonite says. Every non-red in the deck increases the odds of it being worse. And effectively, a blue pitch that you play as a red, accounting for flame scale. Yeah, I think there is enough drawback to the deck. I just get worried because of Illusionist kind of abusing the resource sink of Tamil with the Imperial Flame, but I think with Warrior and Ninja, these sort of like more aggressive leaning decks that don't play out permanents onto the board, I think it'll be a little bit more balanced because it basically will be a hand filter, and it'll basically allow you to filter 2 cards that you don't like, and they have to be red as well. And maybe Warrior is a little bit more resource heavy, so they don't play this Tome of Imperial Flame, but I could definitely see like the Ninja or Fi kind of bringing this back into the deck maybe, if they play a lot more reds than blues, just to kind of filter their hand out and get damage in. But yeah, I think just held back by that last paragraph. Hopefully Fi gets some more help from the set. Yeah, I think he will. Obviously, Draconic Ninja is literally in the set, so I think Fi will definitely get a lot better too. It's going to be curious to see if Fang is better than Fi. But I think that Tome being bad in Fi is kind of an indicator that it was really only abused by Dromai. So these sort of physical damage classes without permanents probably won't use it as well. So Tome just being kind of like an honorable mention because it draws 2 cards. But I think with the resource sink of you have to pitch 2 reds, it kind of negates itself in that way. So pretty good. Next, you have Count Your Blessings. Count Your Blessings, the deck that won Worlds entirely, Worlds Osaka. So Count Your Blessings has been a big controversy, I feel like. It's been blowing up all over social media, all over the broadcast as the players are playing. And everyone knows this sort of notorious deck where it's life gain. And it's very hard to counter because you have to play like awkward cards like Poison the Well, Gravekeeping, all these generic cards that work very well with how your class wants to be built. But you have to play them because Count Your Blessings is in the meta. And everyone kind of knew that the best Count Your Blessings deck was Enigma. So if you were already playing, that card was busted. Yeah, it was pretty good to watch all weekend. Everyone knew that Enigma was kind of the best Count Your Blessings deck because of its resource sink. And the ability to just kind of sink resources away because, you pitch a blue, pay the 2 to heal, and then you use the 1 left to either, put into your block or use it on Oasis. So, like, Count Your Blessings is really good in Enigma, and it kind of showed this weekend where, you were able to fatigue so many opponents because you got to that point of critical healing where you got past, I think, the 5th Count Your Blessings, and everything became super above rate. So, yeah, it's a pretty meta-defining card, I would feel like. I think everyone has seen that sort of clip of Brian saying that he doesn't want healing in the deck. Or, like, he doesn't want not all defensive, non-attacking healing to be sort of a game plan. People are saying that for him. But I think Count Your Blessings is different in the fact that it doesn't block. Obviously, Sigil of Solace doesn't block either. But the drawback, I think, of Count Your Blessings is that it costs 2, so you have to pay a card for it, and it doesn't block. So I think those are the 2 main downfalls. But I think Grzegorz did a really good job of deck building where he kind of negated entirely the sort of the downfall of Count Your Blessings, where because it didn't block, you couldn't sort of use anything, couldn't use the extra resource to do anything else. But the fact that he had Waning Vengeance, Oasis, Footsteps, Tunic to play 200 in a turn, like, it negated all of that. And it became this ultra premium defense deck that kind of used Count Your Blessings to its advantage super well. And it definitely helps, obviously, when you find them super early so that the later ones stick very fast. You kind of get all the bad cards out of your deck, and then the rest of your deck is just straight up block cards. The requirement for Royal was an extra drawback for Fi, an Imperial Flame. He would have to trade off momentum with links for a 0-block hat with a gold token. Yeah, that's also true. Like, ninjas typically want that really powerful mask, whether it be links or momentum, and playing the royal helmet is really bad for them. These heroes are just straight up royal. Fang and Syndra, or is it Syndra? Yeah, I think it is Syndra. Fang and Syndra are both generically royal draconic heroes, so they won't need to play the tome. They can just play any other mask. So that's going to be a really big buff and boon to them to be able to play Tome of Imperial Flame for free. CYB is not a fun card in general. 90-minute games where you're fighting Talishar dummy isn't something people want as top world top 8. Yes. So my thought process on this is I absolutely hate watching Count Your Blessings. I don't think it's fun to spectate. Just because it's kind of like just healing. It's very uninteractive in that way, but I feel like I love playing against it. Like, I love solving the puzzle of trying to beat them before their deck reaches that critical mass of healing. I've always been a fan since this card came out of playing against Count Your Blessings because it kind of puts the onus on you to kind of solve that puzzle really fast. Obviously, there's some decks that just can't beat it, right? Like, I openly admit, like, Riptide will just lose to that straight up sometimes. There's slower decks that get fatigued really easily that just lose to it no matter what. But, like, if you're in playing Aurora or playing, like, an aggro deck that has answers to it, like, it's really fun to kind of solve that puzzle of, can I do enough damage to burst through the Count Your Blessings deck? And Count Your Blessings is it's like uninteractive fatigue. It's just, like, sitting there blocking and telling you, can you do enough, this X amount of damage before I get to X amount of health? So I can definitely see why people don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it as a spectator product, but I love playing against it because it's super fun to kind of navigate against. But I've always been a fan of anti-fatigue, like playing decks that kind of negate anti-fatigue or negate fatigue, like Chain back in the day. I like playing Riptide for that fact because a lot of people try to fatigue Riptide, so it's really fun to try to solve that puzzle with like your dominating Murky Waters and whatnot. But I think this card is on the chopping block pretty heavily. I don't know. It won the whole world's thing. It won the whole world's championship. So like, I feel like banning it would be kind of weird because you're banning basically the deck that everyone's gonna copy. Right? Like everyone's gonna try to copy this deck and play it, at their local competitive event. Maybe on not their armies because they want people to retain playing, and new players might not be a big fan of the product of Count Your Blessings, but everyone's gonna copy this deck, and it's gonna suck if they basically ban it a week after, and we're just like, hey, Count Your Blessings Enigma won our entire world championship, everything the whole year led up to, and we're just gonna ban the card that made it famous. So I can definitely see it on the chopping block, and probably is a card down the line that they might ban, but I don't see it being banned this time around. Instead, I think. I didn't enjoy the CYB card, but also because the Mercy had them on the brinks, CYB was just annoying to watch. Yeah, I agree. So going on to my next choice, I think this is sort of the band that kind of works with the Count Your Blessings, but not directly affecting Count Your Blessings because it's a newer card. It just won the World Championship, so you don't want to kind of like put that to the side. Like if Dash won with High Octane, obviously everyone saw the problem in that. That's a card that definitely had to go. But like I don't think they were banning Count Your Blessings. But I think this Flesh Mode has always been kind of like a super community forward game. They listen to the community and they definitely see the scorn and the resistance against this card. Like it's definitely not falling on I don't know what the saying is, falling on something I don't know what the saying was, but like they definitely notice it. Like James White knows, Brian knows, the entire dev team knows, and I think they don't want to ban it outright because I think they want to keep it in the game, but maybe they attack it on a different axis where they look towards cards like Sync, Fate, Deaf Ears. There you go. It does not fall on deaf ears. That's what the saying was. For Sync Below and Favor Scene, I think these have been around in the game forever. Like this has always been integral in every deck list. Like Sync Below, Favor Scene. Sync Below more so because it's super good at filtering your hand and getting better cards. Favor Scene less so, but it still is a 0 for 4 that blocks 4, and lets you opt away bad cards for next turn. So just a little bit less strong than the filter effect. But these two cards have been around forever, and they've always kind of negated the strong generics that came from the same sets, like Snatch, Scar for Scar, Ravenous Rabble. These cards are the ones that negate those. And obviously these cards are like really big proponents of fatigue decks, where they just have an overwhelmingly good amount of block cards. I think now they've kind of balanced the defense reaction / block force very well. Like Test of Strength was really good. Because it's a block card, not a defense reaction, so you can't like just stick a 0 for 4 in Arsenal and just have it be played whenever. And there's also like a clash mechanic to it, so it balances and could help out the other hero. And the most recent one I can think of is Rootbound Carapace. Like these block 3 innately or 2 innately, whatever the color may be, and it only gets that +1 if you decompose. So I like the new sort of design space for 0 for 4s, where it has conditions have to be met to be able to do it. Like I think we saw in Crucible 2 with Springboard Somersault. I think that was a really good way of balancing 0 for 4s where a condition has to be met to be able to play it. But there's not really a condition behind just playing Sync Below or Favor Scene. Like it's just generically good. You can play it the turn that it comes in. If you don't play, you can Arsenal it, and now it can come out of Arsenal. So pretty insane cards. I think these cards are the real like sort of like catalyst for a deck like Count Your Blessings Enigma. Like these cards, like we talk about how good Enigma is at resource sinking with, Waning Vengeance, Oasis, all those like 1 cost to go alongside the Count Your Blessings, which cost 2. But I think Sync Below and Faith Foreseen have always been the sort of like underlying issue with the game where, these cards are so powerful at blocking and they propel these sort of defensive strategies so well. And it's just like there's no cost to playing them. They cost 0. You just throw them in a defensive deck and they just work all the time. Whereas the other ones sort of have conditions where you have to meet in order to get this full value out of them. Sync Below and Faith Foreseen will always just be generically good. This also brings up the issue of the 0-for-4s from those same sets like Snatch and whatnot. Like if you ban Sync Below, if you ban Faith Foreseen, do you ban Snatch as well, right? Like is that a thing you want to see? So I think my spicy pick for bans would be to ban Fate Foreseen. I think Sync Below is super integral to the game, obviously with filtering and it makes your hands better. But having 2 0-for-4s kind of is crazy, especially with like them powering down the game a lot with like power turns, like High Octane being gone. Like there's a lot of cards left where if you see them, it's sort of like bad news. And if they really want to kind of like go back to the sort of heavy hitters meta with KO and everyone's saying that Axis Dory is like the perfect definition of Flesh and Blood, like blocking overall will be a lot stronger because the damage ceilings will get lower and lower. And it's going to be really hard to kind of negate the power of Fate Foreseen, of Sync Below, especially with Count Your Blessings alive, if it's still a thing. Like, it's just insane the amount of block cards you can just shove into a deck now. So it would be very interesting to see what Sync Below and Fate Foreseen end up being. I personally think if they had to choose, they would ban Fate Foreseen. I've seen that, they're not afraid to ban legendaries and they're not afraid to ban expensive Majestics. Like Art of War, like I think Cold 4 Art of War was a Judge promo, and they were just like, screw that, we're banning that. So, I think they want to probably keep Sync Below around because of the filter effect. I think the filter effect helps a lot with like how the game is played and how it flows. But Fate Foreseen just seems like it's like egregious in that it just is another 0-for-4 like Sync Below, and it's just like a lesser effect. So I think if you're like really going for gusto, you would probably ban Sync Below if you really wanted to power down blocking. But I think if you really wanted to just like kind of lower the blocking ceiling, you would go for Fate Foreseen instead and keep Sync Below, because Sync Below can be a proactive card as well. Sync Below can fix your hand to make your hand a little bit better, whereas Fate Foreseen, you're just straight up blocking. There's not a lot of ways the Op 1 can be used. Unless you're playing like Azalea or something, there's not a lot of ways to like op 1 and it be turned into like an offensive thing. Whereas Sync Below can be turned into an offensive fix, because if your hand's really bad, you could just Sync Below and sync the card that's not really helping out. Going to chat, Reduxio says, thoughts on Mordred Tide as a ban then? So that's interesting. I was debating putting Mordred Tide on here because everyone saw how good Viscerai did, but I feel like Mordred Tide. What are my thoughts on Mordred Tide here? I wasn't planning on talking about Mordred Tide today, but now that you brought it up, it's a very interesting sort of standpoint. Let's just leave it up to chat. If you guys want to chat, put it in the chat what you think about Mordred Tide. We'll answer it all together, and then we'll finish out this list and we'll come back to it. So let me put out a poll actually and engage everyone here. Actually, that won't work. Okay. Well, if you're here, just put your thoughts into the chat on what you think about Mordred Tide. I have some certain thoughts on it that I'm kind of trying to put into words right now too. So I'll answer that after Belittle. But yes, to answer off Sync Below and Fate Foreseen, I think going off what Crimson Knight said, you do remove a lot of defensive agency if you ban both. I don't think you should ban both. I think you should just ban one. And that's probably good enough to kind of lower down the defensive agency in the whole game. It's just like so weird to see decks that are like, oh, I'm just gonna try to play super defensive. Like you're always gonna put in Sync, you're always gonna put in Fate, right? There's no cost to playing them. So like removing one of them will remove the consistency of being able to block for the 4 breakpoint very well. So it'd be very interesting to see if they end up doing one of those. My pick is Fate Foreseen, since they probably don't want to do like a heavy ban list alongside High Octane. But if they're really going for gusto, they might ban Sync Below and God forbid both. That'd be insane. If they did both, like aggro come back, man. Aggro is going to be so back, it's going to be insane if they ban both Sink Below and Favor Scene. And Belittle. So Belittle's interesting. They're powering down the game, and Belittle was kind of banned before all the tome because they thought it was super strong. I personally think Belittle was abused because of Art of War. Like, Belittle was really good in all the decks that ran Art of War because you can use the extra resources if you find the blue minimalism, and then you can just go get a red if you already have a pitch card for it, and you're already pitching. So if you're like floating 2 off Belittle, or if you're floating 2 off Art of War, Belittle just allows you to extend that damage that turn. And I feel like Belittle now, if they're banning all the books, they ban Art of War, they're powering down the game. If they're not going to ban a lot of these, like, you know, defensive tools like Sink Below, Favor Scene, maybe even like stuff like Oasis, the game's powering down a lot. So I feel like Belittle is in a space where it could come back. I know that they said that it restricts deck building pretty hard because you have to always worry about Belittle and if certain card breaks Belittle. But I feel like Belittle was always good because of Art of War, like Morris T said earlier in the chat. Like, it just extended that entire turn a lot more. So I think it's personally a little bit easier to kind of usher back into the meta, I would say. It's a little bit easier just to kind of get there because the game is powering down. If you're not banning Count Your Blessings, you still need the sort of agency from aggro decks to be able to, you know, grab really big power turns. I don't think it's as good in this sort of meta. Maybe Zen still abuses it too well. But Zen, I feel like, is really powered down as well now without Art of War. I think Ninja always kind of abused Art of War very well. Like, obviously, Belittle was insane in Chain as well. But Chain was probably the best use case for Art of War. So, like, with all the Art of War defenders sort of losing their primary attacking tool, I feel like Belittle has space to come back in some sort of capacity. You can obviously still run Minnowism right now, but I think Belittle coming back would be very interesting, especially I would like it if they didn't ban Favor Scene or Sync to bring Belittle back, but if they ban Favor Scene or Sync, that you probably don't need Belittle to come back. But maybe they just don't. I understand that it's probably not going to be an area they attack because they don't want that sort of game design to always have to worry about, like, you know, do we make this new Majestic a 4 attack because we don't want it to interact with Belittle. So there's like so much that goes into having to balance like these sort of meta defining cards. But so I can definitely see it there. All right, going back to Morgitide. I think for more, let's add it to the list so everyone knows what we're talking about. Morgitide. All right, so that's I think Pat has some interesting thoughts on Morgitide in the chat. More data needed. Mordred is Vis's strongest card. Is Viscerai's strongest card, but needs to see what or other ban decisions are made. If you're powering down the format, Morgitide ban until Vis LLs. If incentivizing aggro decks with CYB and D-React ban, he needs to be able to go fast as Aurora. Morgitide is only good in Viscerai. The ceiling is insane with Malefic and Revel. You can generate 10 plus value in it. Getting 3/4 is pretty average. It feels quite fair. Morgitide always seems like it adds 10 damage minimum. Okay, some pretty interesting thoughts there. So I think I agree that it's in sort of the same boat as High Octane, where if you play it on average, on like an average, High Octane is really good in 3 mechs, right? Morgitide is only good in Viscerai, I think. Like, it's not very good in any other deck because the goal of the other decks isn't to make Rune Chants. And they can't make Rune Chants as easy as Viscerai. Like, Morgitide literally works with Viscerai because it's a non-attack, and then every time he plays a Runeblade card after, he'll get a Rune Chant, and that's why it works so well. Whereas it doesn't work well in other decks because you're not generating Rune Chants as often and as much as Viscerai is with his hero ability. So it only works in Viscerai. And it feels like it's oppressive when you have these sort of like permanents on the board, similar to High Octane, where High Octane on an average turn obviously is kind of like Blood Rush Bellow, where you just do you just go super hard on one turn, and you know your resources are used up, but you do a lot of damage. But High Octane was really good with Cerebellum because it allowed you to extend these turns into very like degenerate turns with System Reset, cranking all the cards again, getting extra action points to shoot pistol. And then just like enabling the sort of like super degenerate turn, where Morgitide sometimes feels like that as well, with, you know, Malefic Incantation, and whatnot. I don't think it enables any sort of like infinite value sort of like game plans yet. Like obviously you could still do amazing amounts of damage with Rune Chance. This having the ability to tutor with Become the Arcanite makes it just feel like it happens at the perfect time. Always could be going crazy. Turns out Arcane Rising Majestics with permanents are really good. Turns out like so. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I think it kind of acts like High Octane when you have Malefic Incantation on the board and you have a really go wide hand. But more often than not, you see it used on like setup turns as well. Like you see it used like you play Mordred into Malefic into Read the Runes, and like that's a really good turn. I think like it's a really cool card to bounce because it can be used for setup and be used for offensive. I think the offensive capabilities of it doesn't line up to what High Octane can do. It's like probably a little bit closer to what Blood Rush Bellow can do. Like it's obviously a power turn, but I feel like that you shouldn't take away cards that you shouldn't take away, you know, class cards that are enabling these power turns because you still want to be able to do powerful things. Like you don't want to take all agency out of the game and just make it like super blocky, super, you know, do X damage, block up. Like that's very fun to watch, obviously. But you want, as a player, I think you want to see powerful turns, and I think you want to see, like have power in your hands, have agency in your hands. So like banning Mordred would basically almost not invalidate Viserai, but like you don't have any more power turns like that anymore. Like Revel is your last power card, right? So banning Mordred would be pretty insane. I feel like it would kind of hurt the identity of Viserai a lot. Especially because I feel like he's becoming sort of this poster child of Flesh and Blood, whereas it was, you know, Prism for a long time, with Prism kind of taking a step back with the tome bands, not seeing play as much. Like Viserai with the new promo that just came out in Osaka, and the sort of like buff to him from all the Rosetta Runeblade cards. It feels very weird to ban Mordred. I think maybe if he got a lot more stream time and he got a lot more sort of press from Worlds, maybe we could get closer to it, but I don't think Mordred is degenerate enough to kind of warrant that. Like it's really good on offense when you use it offensively with like Malefics, but more often than not, I feel like I've seen Mordred be played when you're trying to set up, like you're trying to play Read the Runes and whatnot, like Become the Arcanite, discard an attack, play Mordred, play Malefic, play Read the Runes. So obviously a very good card. Obviously a card like High Octane where if you see it, you know you're gonna be hit for a lot if they're using it offensively. But I think it's a pretty integral part to Viserai and what kind of enables Viserai to do so many cool things, like with Mordred. Like it's almost as essential as Become the Arcanite. So I think banning it would be very would hurt Viserai a lot. So they probably don't want to do that, especially if they're kind of powering down the game and keeping cards like the defensive cards up. If they ban Mordred too, like Viserai stands no chance against Count Your Blessings Enigma, right? Like if you play Mordred no Mordred Viserai into Enigma, you have lost. Like there's no way you beat that. Banning Mordred would make Vis get stuck in elo points like he did for a while. Leave the card alone. He will rotate in a year less. Yeah, I also see that. Like if you're using the Living Legend system, if you're LSS and using the Living Legend system as a way to balance the game, Mordred being only useful in Viserai will probably lead to it not being an issue when he LLs anyway. But if you really want to keep Viserai around and you don't like that sort of playstyle, I think LSS really likes the design of Mordred because it allows him to kind of be super versatile. But if they don't like it, like if they ban it, if they do it so that it's banned until he LLs, like what else is the card going to be used for, right? Like the card is good in Viserai and that's it. Like if you play in any other hero, it's basically just a red block 3. It seems like the main things they're trying to be wary of are action point abuse and unconditional card advantage. They left Codex of Frailty and immediately printed stuff like Felling and Plow under. Yeah. I think they are scared of Germinator. Welcome into the chat, by the way. I think they are pretty scared of action point economy and unconditional card advantage. I think those two are really really strong because obviously getting extra cards in Flesh and Blood is insane. Like you're kind of set to this 4-card advantage, and if you ever get out of that cycle and go up to 6, 7, 8 cards, you know, God forbid 10 cards, you do start doing these super degenerate turns, which is like pretty insane outside the normal norm. High Octane obviously does that now with Cerebellum Processor. I think it didn't do that for a long time. It just basically turned your blues into more damage with Dash IE. But now with like Cerebellum, High Octane kind of turns it into insane amounts of card advantage. So it's sad to see that an item was the death of a High Octane. It was one of my favorite boost cards. But Mortar Stride doesn't do that, right? Like, Mortar Stride doesn't get you card advantage. It doesn't get you extra action points unless you, like, Spellbound it as an instant. It just increases your damage a lot. Or you can use it as a defense or, like a setup turn. So I don't think it aligns with what they're trying to fix. The hot take is to ban Flicker Wisp if we are planning down the game. The only thing that makes it not higher on the list is the one-time use equipment enabling it to be oppressive. Are you talking about Flicker Wisp combo with Aether Ironweave? Flicker Wisp is an interesting card too. I don't know if down the line that would be good, but obviously it's very good with Arc Lightning. That's a really powerful combo, but I think I don't know if it works to ban either, because it's not necessarily card advantage either. It's just like a very powerful turn. Like we want people to be able to do powerful things and have powerful turns. Like we want damage to be in the game, right? Otherwise, everyone's just gonna be like blocking forever, and just like fatiguing everyone out. Like we want to be able to beat fatigue. So I feel like all these bans that are related to just doing damage innately is kind of rough. The reason why Zen is so good back then in doing damage is because he was able to draw insane amounts of cards with Artivore, Orion, Ancestral Harmony, buffing, and also netting you extra cards. And, you know, Lexi being able to do 3 of a kind. Like, all the powerful aggro decks in the past have had card advantage innately. Now Dash.io. So I feel like they're always hitting the cards that draw you extra cards. So I feel like just nerfing a damage card feels kind of weird. Obviously, Ball Lightning being a pretty big case against it. Like, they banned Ball Lightning. They're like, F that. We do not want people to have amplified damage like that. But I think that was, you know, they probably had Rosetta in testing and development at that time. They're like, we can't have Ball Lightning stick around if we're gonna have Aurora come out. But yeah, in short, I think that Mortar Stride just doesn't deserve the ban. Just because it's not degenerate. It's not degenerate as consistently as High Octane can be. It's just a super powerful setup card if you want it to be, and it's a super powerful offensive card if you want it to be. So, my predictions, I think, can we highlight these? Alright, so obviously, alright, let's just do this. I'm going to basically make all, no, I don't know how to use this notepad, but basically going off this list, I think the cards that would be banned will be High Octane, obviously. I think Bloodrush Bellow, Tome of Imperial Flame, and Count Your Blessings will all be untouched. But I think the spicy pick for me is that they're gonna probably ban Fate Foreseen. It's gonna suck because there's the Fate Foreseen promo out there, and it's gonna suck for collectors everywhere. But I think it's still being live in LL, still being live in other formats. I think if they're gonna power down the game and they're focused on powering down the game, they want to hit this now and kind of go more along the lines of having class-specific defense reactions instead of like being able to allow any class to just have access to all these super strong defense reactions. I think they banned Fate Foreseen, which is my spicy pick for the bans. Hitting High Octane would put Max below ground. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unfortunate because Max is going to suck after High Octane being banned, but I think they also said that they want Max to not be building the mech suit, swing with mech suit like 10 million times. They wanted Max to kind of work with the hyperdrivers. They probably want like the moonshot sort of game plan where, you know, you hit them for a lot with your moonshots, with your hyperdrivers that you've made. When is BNR hitting? So BNR is actually hitting, I think next week on the 11th. So I think it's November 11th is when it hits. So it should be next Monday when this hits. So yeah, I think my prediction is High Octane being banned, Fate Foreseen being banned, Mortar Stride is untouched, and I think Belittle is untouched as well. I don't think Belittle comes back. But I think they'll spice it up a little bit more with Favor Seeing being banned. And they want to keep Count Your Blessings in the meta, just to kind of have that as a viable strategy. But they want to power down its power level by hitting one of its very crucial 0-4 defense reactions with Fate Foreseen. Do you think Fi will be a thing after the Hunted? I think Fi will be insanely strong. I think that unless they print Royal Draconic Warrior Ninja cards, right? No, Royal Draconic Ninja cards, I think Fi will be very strong. Obviously, they're going to make Draconic cards. Will all the class cards be Royal Draconic Ninja? Like, probably, right? But Fi will also be allowed to play them if he plays the Crown Dominion Mask. But then he's also taking away Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, which is one of his insane headpieces. I think Fi will be strong. I think people have memed on Fi for a long time. He literally won a world championship. I don't think anyone's memeing him, but like in terms of like set and like the expansion slot, like Fi hasn't gotten an expansion slot like basically ever. For a very long time at least. So he hasn't gotten support at all. Dromai keeps getting all these ashes and Fi doesn't get anything. So I think he's pretty much due. Like this is probably his set to kind of blow up again. And with the Art of War ban, I think they really want to put Fi back on top. I feel like they like Ninja and they like the sort of like aspect that Ninja brings to Flesh and Blood. But they're really treading carefully with, how they balance ninjas because they have been broken in the past with like Zen and Fi. Do you believe in the hype train of Arachne and the spec being something real? So I won't speak on Arachne in too much in depth. We actually have a stream coming up tomorrow with Jake Torres, who's also on the stream and on the team. He's going to be talking all things Arachne and kind of unmasking the hero overall. So we'll save it for that. Definitely tune in tomorrow. I'm not sure what time he's on, but we'll schedule it soon. And you definitely check out his stream. He's going to go into all the spoilers. He's the assassin guy on the team, so he probably knows a lot more than me. I don't play a whole too much of Assassin, but I think Arachne is super cool. I think Arachne having this sort of like mini game where he's milling, or they're milling, sorry. They're milling all these cards, and it's sort of like this sort of macro game plan, whereas a lot of heroes are very micro based, where you're trying to just win turn cycles over and over. I think Arachne is pretty cool. He just lacks damage, and that's really bad against obviously Illusionist, who's still really prevalent in the meta, especially with Count Your Blessings. I think Inez from San Diego, she puts up a really good point. I think Gage as well, who's talking. Arachne is actually really good against Count Your Blessings, right? Like he banishes all your Count Your Blessings if they hit, and then obviously they're easier to hit when you don't have blocking cards. But the fact that he's so bad into Illusionist negates that fact. Like if you play, I think Arachne might actually be the most favored into Count Your Blessings overall, because you can mill them or you can banish them, and then less block means better on hits for you. But the fact that you get negated so hard by Illusionist and get kept by the Illusionist class is just super bad, and you can probably never get there, unfortunately. Now Arachne not getting ways to use stealth is kind of sad. Yeah, now it's so easy to target Phoenix Flame in the grave. Yeah, Fi definitely suffers from that, like with all the Phoenix Flame stuff. But maybe, I've seen a lot of people start playing 3 of Phoenix Flames back then. So I think that might come back to be a thing. Like you don't just play 1 Phoenix Flame, you play 3 Phoenix Flames. And you bring back stuff like Flame Call Awakening. You bring stuff maybe in like Inflame. Phoenix Form has always been kind of a meme. Phoenix Form is like the crazy card, right? Like it's basically Whirling Mist Blossom. But you kind of have to have all modes turned on. So maybe more stuff with Phoenix Flame down the line. Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see what that entails. But yeah, I think that's basically it. I think High Octane and Fate Foreseen are gonna be the ban targets, and I think that's basically what's gonna happen next Monday. I'm super excited to see what happens. That's basically what for all I had for the stream today, guys. I was planning on playing maybe some games with a deck that I think is going to be really good, but I don't think it's going to be unveiled just yet, because we kind of want to see where the bans go, and I want to give you guys kind of like a more refined version with where the meta is going. It is a Mechanologist deck, but without High Octane. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun in a future video. I also am gonna try to get some blitz content up because I know skirmish season is happening soon. We want to do some blitz. I have a really fun KO Berserker run deck that I want to really show you guys. Does insane amounts of damage. Buy your copies of 10 foot tall and bulletproof now. If you roll a 5 or 6, it'll be over. It's 20 damage, right? It swings for 10. So if you roll 5 or 6, you swing for 20, which is insane. A deck I think will be really good. By God, he can't keep getting away with Dash AE like this. Hey man, you never know if it's Dash AE or Riptide or whatnot. It is a mechanologist. So I've played one mechanologist more than any other mechanologist this entire year. But I will unveil that deck when we know more about the meta. Like maybe they ban a card from that deck as well. So I don't want to showcase a deck that might get hit by the bans anyway. But it didn't have high octane in it, so I don't know if they're banning any other mech cards to go alongside it. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be back next week to go over a new topic, maybe the BNR if it drops live. Does losing high octane kill IO? No, I don't think it does. I think it turns Dash IO into a very different deck, obviously, with maybe more boom grenades. There's, cards that can kind of help you hit with boom grenades if you're trying to do that. Like if you have a boom grenade out already and you in reaction phase play penetration script, the +1/1, like that serves as like a reaction to make your boom grenade hit. So I think Dash IO doesn't die at all. Like she's still very strong. She just loses that ability to kind of use all of her pistol counters all at the end right there. So you probably have to shoot pistol consistently more. Like to end a turn rather than like ending on an item, which will definitely change your deck building a little bit. But I think it still can be done. Like Dash is still a super scary deck, right? Like if you swing Zipper Hit for 5 with a Boom Grenade red already out in the field, like that's still 9 damage that you have to block, or 5 damage you have to block to prevent 4. And if you like don't block, they flash in another Boom Grenade. Like she's still just as strong, right? We saw Yuki beat I think Pablo on stream without playing a single high octane. So the deck is still like insane, I think. It's just powered down a lot by not having high octane. But yeah, thanks for tuning in today, guys. Really important day in America, so hopefully everyone went out to do their thing. And yeah, have a great time. We'll see you guys next week for maybe the update on the BNR. If the BNR is live, we will talk about that. That should be a lot of fun. But thanks for tuning in today. Once again, Anthony, peacing out. Have a great day, guys.